Ever wonder what happened to that sleek futuristic sports car from the 80s TV show where a retired judge teamed up with an ex-con to fight crime? You know, the one that looked like it could outrun anything on the California highways? Well, the Coyote X from Hardcastle and McCormick has more secrets under its fiberglass body than you might think. Today, we're counting down 20 weird facts about this iconic TV car that'll make you see it in a whole new light. From its surprising origins to the uncomfortable truth about why they had to rebuild it. Get ready for some revelations that even die-hard fans might not know. And trust me, by the time we get to number 1, you'll understand why this car became both a blessing and a curse for everyone involved with the show. So buckle up and let's dive into the strange world of television's most mysterious sports car. Number 20, the McLaren connection. Nobody talks about. Here's something that'll blow your mind right off the bat. The Coyote X wasn't some original design cooked up in a Hollywood prop shop. Nope. The body was actually molded from custom molds based on the McLaren M6 GT. Yes, that McLaren. The same company that makes million-dollar supercars today. But here's where it gets weird. While the outside screamed exotic supercar, underneath was something completely different. They built this thing on a Volkswagen Beetle chassis. That's right. The same platform that powered countless hippie vans and college kids' first cars was hiding under all that sleek fiberglass. It's like putting a tuxedo on a scarecrow. The contrast is almost laughable when you think about it. Here you have this car that's supposed to be chasing down hardened criminals at high speeds, and it's essentially a dressed-up bug. But wait, it gets even stranger. The original engine wasn't some high-performance V8 or racing motor. They stuffed a Porsche 914 four-cylinder in there. Not exactly the powerhouse you'd expect from a car that looked like it belonged on a racetrack. This Frankenstein approach to building the Coyote X would later cause all sorts of problems for the production, but in the beginning, they just needed something that looked fast and could move under its own power. The fact that it was basically automotive cosplay didn't matter as long as it looked good on camera. Number 19. The actors literally couldn't fit. You know what's worse than having to do your own stunts? Having to do them in a car that's too small for your body. Both Brian Keith and Daniel Hugh Kelly were around 6 feet tall, and the original Coyote X was apparently built for hobbits. The actors found it so cramped that getting in and out became a genuine problem during filming. Imagine trying to look cool and intimidating while basically folding yourself into an origami shape just to sit down. This wasn't just uncomfortable, it was affecting the shooting schedule. Every time they needed to film a scene of the characters getting in or out of the car, it turned into a gymnastics routine. The situation got so bad that after season 1, the producers made a drastic decision. They completely rebuilt the car using parts from a DeLorean DMC-12. Yes, the same car from Back to the Future. But this wasn't about time travel, it was about giving the actors enough room to actually do their jobs without needing a chiropractor on standby. The new version looks similar enough that most viewers never noticed the switch, but for Keith and Kelly, it was like upgrading from a sardine can to actual transportation. This kind of major vehicle swap mid-series is almost unheard of in television history. Usually they just deal with whatever problems the original car has, but when your lead actors are literally suffering every time they have to use the main prop, something's got to give. Number 18. The hero car. Still exists in private hands. While most TV cars end up crushed, sold for parts, or rotting in some studio backlot, the original hero Coyote X from season 1 managed to escape Hollywood's usual fate. It's currently in private ownership, presumably sitting in some collector's garage being lovingly maintained. Think about that for a second. Somewhere out there, someone owns the actual car that Brian Keith drove in those early episodes. The same vehicle that launched 1,000 childhood fantasies about fighting crime in a cool sports car. But here's what makes this even more interesting. This isn't just any Coyote X, it's the hero car. In film and TV production, the hero car is the one used for close-ups and beauty shots. It's the prettiest, most detailed version of the vehicle. While stunt cars get beaten up and destroyed, the hero car is babied and protected. The fact that it survived all these years is remarkable. Most TV cars from the 80s were considered disposable props once filming wrapped. Studios didn't think anyone would care about preserving them. Boy, were they wrong. Today, that privately owned Coyote X is probably worth more than the entire budget for several episodes of the show. It's a piece of television history hiding in someone's collection, a tangible link to those Sunday nights when families gathered around the TV to watch Hardcastle and McCormick chase bad guys through the streets of Los Angeles. Number 17. The stunt car's bizarre second life. If you thought the hero car had an interesting story, wait until you hear what happened to the stunt Coyote. After Hardcastle and McCormick ended, this beat-up stunt car didn't head to the scrapyard. Instead, it got reconfigured for the Knight Rider 2000 pilot movie. That's right, the same car that was chasing criminals with Judge Hardcastle ended up in the Knight Rider universe. But that wasn't the end of its transformations. After its Knight Rider stint, someone had the bright idea to turn it into the Taz-Mobile. Yes, as in the Tasmanian Devil from Looney Tunes, from crime-fighting sports. Car to cartoon character promotional vehicle, you can't make this stuff up. The journey of this particular car reads like some kind of automotive identity crisis. One day, it's a serious crime-fighting machine, the next it's promoting Saturday morning cartoons. But the story doesn't end there. Eventually, someone decided to restore its dignity. The car was shipped to Texas to be rebodied back to its original Coyote configuration. They tried to retain as many original parts as possible, essentially bringing it back from its cartoon grave. This kind of recycling was common in Hollywood, but rarely do we see one car go through so many radical transformations. It's like the automotive equivalent of a character actor who plays a cop, then a clown, then goes back to playing a cop again. Number 16. The Married with Children. Cameo. Here's a weird bit of TV trivia that'll make you do a double take. The Coyote X made a surprise appearance in Married with Children. Season 5, Episode 6 to be exact. For just a brief moment, the crime-fighting sports car showed up in the Bundy universe. Now this wasn't some big crossover event or special guest appearance, it was just there. Like someone in the props department said, hey, we've got this cool car sitting around, let's throw it in the background. The randomness of it is what makes it so strange. Hardcastle and McCormick had been off the air for years by that point. There was no promotional reason to include the car. It just showed up, probably confusing the heck out of viewers who recognized it. This kind of prop recycling happened all the time in Hollywood, but usually they'd at least try to disguise it a bit. Not this time. It was clearly the Coyote X just hanging out in the Bundy's neighborhood like it had taken a wrong turn from fighting crime and ended up in sitcom land. It's one of those blink and you'll miss it moments that makes you wonder what other TV cars have secretly appeared in shows where they don't belong. Was Kit ever parked outside the Cheers bar? Did the A-Team van ever cruise past the Golden Girls' house? The Coyote X's cameo in Married with Children remains one of television's more bizarre prop appearances. Number 15. The identity crisis of the car's name. You'd think after 3 seasons everyone would agree on what to call the main car in the show. You'd be wrong. Throughout Hardcastle and McCormick's run, the car's name was surprisingly inconsistent. Sometimes it was the Coyote X, with that X supposedly making it sound more mysterious and high-tech. Other times, characters just called it the Coyote, dropping the X entirely like it never existed. But it gets weirder. In some episodes, it was referred to as Cody Coyote, which sounds more like a cartoon character than a high-performance vehicle. This kind of inconsistency drives fans crazy. It's like the writers couldn't remember what they'd named their own creation, or maybe different writers just had different preferences and nobody bothered to maintain continuity. The confusion extends to merchandise and promotional materials too. Some toys called it one thing, some magazine articles another. Even today, if you search for information about the car, you'll find it listed under all these different names. It's like the car had multiple personalities, which is ironic considering it also had multiple physical incarnations throughout the show's run. This naming confusion has become part of the show's charm for hardcore fans. They'll debate which name is correct in forums and fan sites, even though the show itself never seemed to care about consistency. It's a weird legacy for a TV car to have an identity crisis about its own name. Number 14. The musical chairs. Theme song disaster. Most TV shows pick a theme song and stick with it, not Hardcastle and McCormick. They managed to create a theme song controversy that had viewers actually writing letters to the network. The show started with Drive by Mike Post, a perfectly good action show theme. Then midway through Series 2, someone decided to switch it to Back to Back, also by Post and Pete Carpenter. Big mistake, viewers hated it, and when I say hated, I mean they launched what was basically an 80s version of a social media campaign. Letters poured in demanding the return of the original theme. The outcry was so intense that the producers actually caved and switched back to Drive. This kind of flip-flopping on a theme song was almost unheard of. Theme songs are part of a show's identity. Changing them mid-run is like changing the main character's name. But what makes this even stranger is that both songs were by the same composer. It wasn't like they switched from orchestral to heavy metal. The change was subtle, but fans noticed and they were not having it. This whole debacle shows how attached viewers can get to even the smallest details of their favorite shows. The theme song sets the mood, gets you pumped for the episode. Messing with it is messing with the ritual of watching. The fact that fan pressure actually forced them to change back is a testament to how much people cared about this show, weird car and all. Number 13, the fake engine. Sounds that fooled everyone. Here's something that'll ruin the magic for you. Most of those awesome engine sounds and tire squeals you heard when the Coyote X was tearing through Los Angeles, totally fake. The actual car, especially with its 4-cylinder engine, sounded about as intimidating as an angry sewing machine. But on TV, it roared like a beast. The sound department worked overtime dubbing in engine noises that had nothing to do with what was actually under the hood. This was standard practice in Hollywood, but the disconnect between the Coyote's appearance and its actual performance made the dubbing especially obvious if you knew what to listen for. In some scenes, you can hear V8 engine sounds coming from what was essentially a souped-up Volkswagen. The tire squeals were often added even when the car was barely moving. It's like they were trying to convince viewers through audio alone that this thing was faster than it really was. What's funny is that it worked. Kids watching the show were convinced the Coyote X was one of the fastest cars on television. The power of sound design fooled an entire generation into thinking a car built on a Beetle chassis was a supercar. Even today, when you watch old episodes, those dubbed sounds still sell the illusion. It's a reminder that in television, what you hear is often more important than what's actually happening. The Coyote X may not have been fast, but it sure sounded like it was. Number 12, the multiple coyotes. Nobody noticed? Think there was just one Coyote X? Think again. Like most TV and movie cars, there were multiple versions built for different purposes. You had your hero cars for close-ups, your stunt cars for the dangerous stuff, and your jump cars specifically built to survive those dramatic flying scenes. Each version was slightly different, optimized for its specific role. The jump cars, for instance, had reinforced frames and special suspension to handle the landings. The stunt cars might have had different engines or safety equipment. The hero cars were all about looking good, with perfect paint and intact interiors. But here's the weird part. They weren't all identical. If you watch closely, you can spot differences between them. Sometimes the wheel wells are slightly different shapes. Sometimes the trim doesn't match perfectly. It's like a very expensive game of spot the difference. The production team did their best to match them, but when you're building multiple copies of a custom car, perfect consistency is nearly impossible. Plus, as the cars got damaged and repaired throughout filming, they diverge even more from each other. Most viewers never noticed these differences. The action moved fast enough that your brain just registered cool black sports car and moved on. But for eagle-eyed fans who've watched episodes frame by frame, the multiple coyotes are obvious. It's another layer of the illusion that made television magic in the 80s. Number 11, the McLaren copy that wasn't quite right. Remember how I mentioned the Coyote's body was based on the McLaren M6 GT? Well, based on is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. While some parts were remarkably faithful to the original McLaren design, others were, let's say, interpreted creatively. The nose and windshield area were pretty accurate copies, but the rear deck, roll pan, and various other bits were custom creations that had more in common with kit cars of the era than with McLaren's original design. It's like they started with good intentions of making a faithful replica, then halfway through said, "Hey, close enough." The wheel wells were noticeably different from a real McLaren. The roll pan height and shape were off. These differences might seem minor, but they're what distinguish the Coyote from both authentic McLarens and the various kit car versions floating around in the 80s, like the Manta montage. What's particularly interesting is that the Coyote's front clip was one piece, terminating before and around the windshield. This was actually more authentic to the original McLaren than many kit cars that tried to mimic the design with multiple pieces. So in some ways, the Coyote was more accurate than its kit car cousins, while in others it was completely off base. This mix of authentic and improvised design elements gave the Coyote its unique look. It was familiar enough to seem like a real supercar, but different enough to be its own thing. Whether this was intentional or just the result of Hollywood practicality, we'll never know. Number 10. Judge Hardcastle's ridiculous criminal filing system. The entire premise of the show hinged on something that would make any real judge laugh out loud. Judge Milton Hardcastle supposedly had a file drawer containing 200 criminals who escaped justice due to legal technicalities, just sitting there, in his house. Like a collection of baseball cards, but for felons. Think about the logistics of this for a second. This judge personally kept track of 200 cases where criminals walked free. He maintained files on all of them. And somehow, this was going to be the basis for his retirement vigilante project with Mark McCormick. The legal and ethical issues here are staggering, but the show just rolled with it like it was the most normal thing in the world. Even weirder, the Coyote X was somehow part of this deal. McCormick got to drive this exotic sports car as part of his arrangement to help chase down these criminals, because nothing says legitimate law enforcement like giving an ex-con a supercar to chase other criminals. The show never really explained how this arrangement was supposed to work legally. Were they bounty hunters, private investigators, vigilantes with a really nice car? The details were fuzzy at best. But hey, when you've got Brian Keith growling at criminals in a cool car jumping over things, who needs logical plot devices? The file drawer of escaped criminals became one of those TV premises you just had to accept, like how the professor could make a radio out of coconuts but couldn't fix a boat. Number 9. The Hardcase nickname. That was too on the nose. Judge Milton C. Hardcastle's nickname was Hardcase. Get it? Hardcastle, Hardcase. The writers weren't exactly reaching for subtlety here. It's the kind of wordplay that makes you groan and laugh at the same time. But what's really weird is how seriously everyone in the show took this nickname. Characters would say it with a straight face like it was the most natural thing in the world to call a judge Hardcase. The pun was so obvious it almost circled back around to being clever. Almost. In the context of 80s television, where subtlety was about as common as realistic car physics, the Hardcase nickname fit right in. Told you everything you needed to know about the character in one cringeworthy pun. He was hard on crime, he was a hard case to deal with, and his name was Hardcastle. The writers probably high-fived each other when they came up with it. What's even funnier is that this kind of on-the-nose naming was everywhere in 80s action shows. You had characters named Max Power, Ace Hunter, and Steel Justice. Compared to those, Hardcase was practically sophisticated. But the fact that a respected judge would go by this nickname, and that other characters would use it without laughing, remains one of the show's more amusing quirks. It's the kind of detail that makes 80s television feel like it was beamed in from another dimension where different rules of coolness applied. Number 8. The evolving interior that made no sense. Watch early episodes of Hardcastle and McCormick. And you'll see something interesting in the Coyote X's interior. A basic floor shift gear shifter, no console, just a stick coming up from the floor like something from a 60s muscle car. Simple, functional, not particularly exotic, but as the series progressed, the interior got fancier. Suddenly, there was a gated center console that looked like it belonged in a Ferrari. Then a tachometer appeared with, wait for it, an actual Ferrari logo on it. Either the Coyote was secretly upgrading itself between episodes, or the prop department was just grabbing whatever looked cool. The continuity here was non-existent. One episode you'd see the basic shifter, the next episode there'd be this elaborate console that looked like it was stolen from Magnum PI's Ferrari. Sometimes the dashboard would have extra gauges, sometimes not. It was like the car's interior was having an identity crisis to match its name confusion. The Ferrari branded tachometer is particularly hilarious. Here's a car that's supposed to be a custom-built crime-fighting machine, and it's sporting parts with another manufacturer's logo. It'd be like the Batmobile having a Toyota steering wheel. But in the world of 80s TV production, if it looked good and was available, it went in the car. This ever-changing interior became another one of those things that only obsessive fans notice, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Number 7. The Ertl toy that's now worth serious money. In the 80s, Ertl made a die-cast replica of the Coyote X that was pretty impressive for its time. We're talking about a 13-inch model that came in a box with a driver figure and everything. For kids who wanted their own Coyote X, this was as close as they were going to get. But here's where it gets interesting. These toys, which probably sold for $20 or $30 back in the day, are now collector's items worth serious money. Mint condition ones in the original box can go for hundreds of dollars. Some rare variations sell for even more. It's a classic case of something that was just a toy becoming a valuable piece of nostalgia. What makes these models special is the level of detail Ertl put into them. For a TV tie-in toy, they were remarkably accurate. The proportions were right, the paint scheme was correct, and they even got small details like the wheel design pretty close. In an era when a lot of TV car toys looked like vague approximations of the real thing, the Ertl Coyote stood out. Today, these models are sought after not just by Hardcastle and McCormick fans, but by collectors of 80s TV memorabilia in general. They represent a piece of television history, a tangible connection to Sunday nights spent watching Brian Keith and Daniel Hugh Kelly fight crime. The fact that a toy car is now worth more than some actual cars is just another weird footnote in the Coyote X's strange history. Number 6. The DeLorean DNA hidden in plain sight. When the producers decided to rebuild the Coyote X after Season 1 to accommodate the actor's heights, they didn't just make it bigger. They essentially created a new car using DeLorean DMC-12 parts. Yes, the same DeLorean that would become famous in Back to the Future. But this was before that movie, when DeLoreans were just those weird stainless steel cars that nobody quite knew what to do with. The rebuilt Coyote incorporated the DeLorean's chassis and various mechanical components, but you'd never know it from looking at it. They kept the fiberglass body that made it look like the original Coyote, but underneath was a completely different animal. It's like automotive secret identity. Mild-mannered DeLorean by day, crime-fighting Coyote by night. This Frankenstein approach to car building was pure Hollywood pragmatism. They needed something with more interior room, and DeLoreans were available and had the right dimensions. The fact that they were using parts from a failed car company to build a fictional success story is ironic in a way only Hollywood could manage. What's really weird is that this major change happened between seasons and most viewers never noticed. The car looked similar enough that unless you were really paying attention, you'd never know you were watching a completely different vehicle. It's a testament to how good the prop department was at maintaining visual continuity, even when they were essentially building a new car from scratch. Number 5, the one-piece front clip that kit cars couldn't copy. Here's something for the car nerds. The Coyote X's front clip was one piece, terminating right before and around the windshield. This might not sound like a big deal, but in the world of kit cars and replicas, it was actually pretty significant. Most kit cars that tried to copy the McLaren look did it with multiple pieces because it was easier and cheaper to manufacture. But the Coyote's builders went the extra mile and created a single-piece front end. This gave it cleaner lines and a more authentic look, even if other parts of the car were completely custom. It's one of those details that separated the Coyote from the numerous Manta montage and other McLaren-inspired kit cars floating around in the 80s. The irony is that while the Coyote was more authentic in this one specific way, it was less authentic in many others. It's like they picked and chose which aspects of the McLaren to faithfully reproduce and which to completely reimagine. This one-piece construction also made repairs more complicated. Damage to any part of the front meant replacing the whole thing, not just a fender or hood. But for a TV car that needed to look good on camera, the cleaner lines were worth the extra hassle. It's another example of how the Coyote X was both a careful reproduction and a complete fabrication at the same time. Number 4, the jump cars built to fly and survive. Every time you saw the Coyote X flying through the air in slow motion, you were actually watching a specially built jump car designed for one purpose: to survive the landing. These weren't just reinforced versions of the regular stunt cars. They were purpose-built machines with completely different suspension, strengthened frames, and often stripped interiors to reduce weight. The engineering that went into these jump cars was serious business. The suspension had to be soft enough to absorb the landing, but stiff enough to launch properly. The frame had to be reinforced in just the right places to prevent the car from folding in half on impact. Get any of this wrong, and you'd have a very expensive pile of fiberglass and twisted metal. What's crazy is how many times these cars had to jump. This wasn't a movie where you do one big stunt and wrap. TV shows needed multiple jumps per season, and each one put tremendous stress on the vehicles. The jump cars took beatings that would destroy a normal car in seconds. Between jumps, the crew would have to inspect everything, replace damaged parts, and sometimes completely rebuild sections of the car. It was like having a NASCAR pit crew, but for a fictional crime-fighting vehicle. The fact that any of these jump cars survived to the end of the series is a testament to the skills of the builders and stunt crew. Number 3, the Texas restoration that tried to resurrect the past. After its adventures as a stunt car, Knight Rider, 2000 vehicle, and the Taz-Mobile, one of the Coyotes was shipped to Texas for what might be the weirdest restoration project in TV car history. Someone had decided this much abused, identity-confused vehicle deserved to be returned to its original Coyote X configuration, but this wasn't a simple restoration. This car had been through so many changes that figuring out what was original and what wasn't became a detective story in itself. The Texas restoration team tried to retain as many original parts as possible, which was like trying to find original pieces in a jigsaw puzzle that had been mixed with 3 other puzzles. They had to track down reference photos, compare different versions of the car, and sometimes just make educated guesses about what was correct. The whole project was a labor of love by fans who wanted to preserve a piece of TV history. What makes this restoration special is that it wasn't backed by a studio or wealthy collector initially. It was grassroots, driven by people who remembered watching the show and wanted to save this iconic car from disappearing completely. The fact that they succeeded in bringing it back to something resembling its original glory is pretty remarkable. It's like automotive archaeology, digging through layers of modifications to find the original Coyote underneath. Number 2, the production secret that changed everything. Here's something the producers probably didn't want viewers to know. The whole reason they switched from the cramped original Coyote to the DeLorean-based version wasn't just about actor comfort, it was about production efficiency and money. Every minute spent helping actors contort themselves into the car was money wasted. Every reshoot because someone's knee was in the wrong place was budget down the drain. The original Coyote's design looked cool, but it was a production nightmare. The doors didn't open wide enough, the seats were too low, the roof was too close. Even simple dialogue scenes inside the car required multiple takes because the actors couldn't sit naturally. They looked uncomfortable because they were uncomfortable. When they made the switch to the DeLorean platform, suddenly everything got easier. Actors could get in and out quickly. They could sit normally during dialogue scenes. The whole production moved faster, which in TV terms means cheaper. It was a practical decision dressed up as a creative one. But here's the really weird part. They managed to make this major change without most viewers noticing. That's either a testament to their prop department's skills or evidence that viewers were more interested in the action than the automotive details. Either way, it remains one of the biggest mid-series vehicle changes in TV history that somehow flew under the radar. Number 1, the curse of being too successful. And here's the ultimate irony about the Coyote X. It was too successful for its own good. The car became so iconic, so associated with the show, that it overshadowed almost everything else about Hardcastle and McCormick. When people remember the show today, they remember the car first, the actors second, and the actual plots a distant third. This created a weird situation where the Coyote X became both the show's biggest asset and its biggest limitation. Storylines had to include car chases and stunts because that's what viewers expected. The car couldn't be seriously damaged or destroyed because it was too important to the show's identity. It was like having a cast member you couldn't write out no matter what. For the actors, especially Brian Keith, who was a serious dramatic actor, being upstaged by a fiberglass prop must have been frustrating. Here he was, bringing gravitas and experience to the role, and people were tuning in to see a fake McLaren jump over things. The car even limited what kinds of stories they could tell. Every episode needed its Coyote moments. But perhaps the strangest part of this curse is what happened after the show ended. The Coyote X lived on in pop culture memory while many other elements of the show faded. It became one of those TV cars that transcended its show, joining KITT, the General Lee, and the A-Team van in the pantheon of iconic 80s vehicles. The fake sports car built on a Volkswagen chassis had somehow become immortal, even as the show that created it became a nostalgic footnote. That's the real weird fact about the Coyote X. A prop that was literally fake on every level became more real and lasting than the show it was created for. And there you have it, that's 20 weird facts about the Coyote X that prove truth really is stranger than fiction, especially when it comes to 80s television. From its Frankenstein construction to its identity crisis, from cramped actors to Ferrari logos that didn't belong, this car's story is way more bizarre than anything they put in the actual show episodes. Did any of these facts surprise you? Do you remember watching Hardcastle and McCormick and thinking the car was the coolest thing on television? Drop your memories in the comments below. because I'd love to hear what you thought of this iconic TV vehicle. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into 80s TV car history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more weird facts about your favorite shows. We've got plenty more automotive mysteries and behind-the-scenes stories coming your way. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the most interesting stories aren't the ones on screen, but the ones that happen behind the cameras. See you next time.